Welcome to the channel as we continue building a RemindMeApp application with Kivy. In the previous video of this series, we built a beautiful interface for the AddReminder item. This is it here. So if I click on the different item, I can see they are not yet implemented. But in our previous video, we implemented this interface here. And this enables us to collect data or reminder information to be saved in the database. And we can see that divided into different section. We have here the section for the time. Here we can specify the hours, the minute, and the second. They have some validation that we can also consider. For example, we can either select double values or single values. So here it represents 2 a.m. and here the limits for the hours is 23 hours, and here the limit is 59 hours, 59 minutes, and here the limit is 59 seconds. So anything else that you put in here, they are not validated, because it also filter out non-numeric characters as well. So for example, let's say I want to set in 12 o'clock, and minute and second are optional, of course. Here I have the possibility to select the days. Let me say Monday and Thursday, and here I can specify if I want them to repeat, if the event should repeat throughout these days that I've selected. And we can see we have an indication that tells us the number of days we selected. And here we have the possibility to select either a pop-up as an indicator or a sound. And here we have the possibility to select the sound we want. Okay, so we can this will open our file explorer, where we can select the sound that we want. So once we select the sound, the name will be indicated here as well. And here we will have the possibility to give a name or a label to our event. Let's say take a short break. Okay, and we can see here we have normally 27 characters to enter, and here the submit button is disabled by default and only enabled when the required fields are entered. For example, let's say we want short break, and here we have this is the incrementing to indicate how many words are left for us to enter here. So once we have this entered, we can go ahead and submit. So once we submit, everything will need to go to the database, but at this point only this has been. In this video, we are going to collect data from the UI we implemented in the previous video and add it to the database. Take a look at the final product. Alright, so once we have all the required field up, the hours, the days has been selected, the sounds have been selected, and also the label has been filled, we can go ahead and submit it. So let's go ahead and try that. Alright, so submission has been done. We have some successful message that's pop up and just disappeared, and everything has been reset. And here we can see, if we refresh our database, we can see we have this that was just inserted. So how does it work behind the scene? We have here an activity diagram. The user submits just like I did. Okay, and here we use the Kivy language to provide the user interface, and the user submits, and it goes to the view, and the view we extract the data. Okay, extract the data. For example, data like this has the data type list of a string or list of string. Okay, so this information, of course, is not good for the database SQLite, because SQLite does not support arrays. So we need to transform the data to be supported by SQLite. So we pass it to the service, and the service does the transform the data, and once it transforms the data, we send it to the schema. The schema verify the information, and the schema is implemented with Pydantic. It verifies the data. If the data is not correct, it stops, but if it is correct, then it goes to the repository, and the repository inserts it to the database. So this is how this process will look like. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment to support the content. Code with Eno. Alright, so first thing first, we are going to fix a few issues that we had from the previous video. We can see if I select the days here, of course, let me say I select Monday and Wednesday. If I go out of the pop-up and I come back, I can see they are all there. Okay, that works perfectly fine, but the repeat does not behave like that. So if I select on repeat and I go out of it and come back, repeat is not restored. So let's see how we can fix that. So in order to fix that, we're going to use the same technique that we use for the days. So here we identify the days pop-up that contains that pop-up where we can select the days and the repeat. And we can see here that for the days we use a function, or we use two functions in order to control how it will be restored. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing for the repeat. So let's look for our Python, the Python file for this view, and identify the days pop-up. Let's see where it is. So this is the day pop-up. So here we can see we have a class attribute here that keep track of how many days we selected. This helps us to restore it back. So here I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say repeat, and I'll set it to false by default, so it is unselected. All right, and just like I did for the days here, I'm going to also define two functions. I'm gonna call this one days repeat check, just like this days pop-up check, and it's gonna take in the is active. Okay, that will indicate if the repeat was active or not. And yeah, I'm just gonna say days pop-up repeat, and I'm gonna set it to is active. Perfect. So the second function will be restore, or the second method will be restore repeats check, and it's going to return just return the days pop-up dot repeats. Perfect. So with that out of the way, let's go back to our Kivy language file, and we're going to identify where the repeats is found. I think it should be on top, the first. So let's see, and this is probably the check. I think this should be the checkbox for the repeat. So we are going to do the same thing here. So for the active, what did I do here? For the active, I'm going to use a restore. So let me copy this to avoid typos. So copy that, and here I'm going to say root.restore, and we are going to also trigger an event called onActive. So onActive here, it's gonna be root dot, gonna copy this one. Perfect. So let's go ahead and restart our application and see if that issue has been resolved. So I'm gonna select Monday, Tuesday, and okay, so we have some issues here. It says missing one argument. Okay, it's active. So for the I think for the restart or not, let's see. Yes, the days repeat check needs to take in one argument. So here I'm gonna pass in the serve.active. Okay, and try it again. So here we can say, okay, so I'm gonna click on repeat, go out of it, come back, and it is being restored. Perfect. All right, let's install a few packages. The first one will be SQLAlchemy. That will be used as our ORM and for our database modeling. We have SQLite 3 for our lightweight database. Of course, SQLite 3 is inbuilt in Python. We have Pydantic that will be used for validation and serialization, and Alembic for migration, and last but not least, python-dotenv for consuming environment variables. All right, so we are using UV, okay, and to install with UV, we use UV-add, and we're going to mention the names of the packages we're going to install. The first one, SQLAlchemy. Second one is going to be Pydantic, and third, Alembic. last but not least, python-dotenv. All right, let's go ahead and run this. All right, SQLAlchemy uses this format to help us consume or to help us connect to our database. So it starts with the dialect. In this case, we're going to use SQLite, and SQLite doesn't need a driver. And yeah, we don't need a username, password, and also the host name. We don't also need a port. So we are going to have just the dialect and the database. So we don't need all of this. So we see that the space here will be removed. So we are going to have 3 // before the database. So let's go on. Let's create our environment variable file, the .env, and see how we can do that. So in our working directory, we will create our .env, and in here we are going to say database underscore URL will be equals to SQLite, lowercase SQLite, column 3. And since we want to create this in the current working in the working directory, we want to create this in the working directory. We're gonna say / we call it RemindMeDB.SQLite. All right. So while we are here, we are also going to set the debug to true. Okay. So once we have this set up, we need to consume this. Okay. So we are going to use the python-dotenv to consume this, and we consume this in the db config file. So in the db config file, we're going to import a few things. First, we're going to import OS, and from .env, we're going to import load.env. So here we're going to load it. It's going to consume from the .env in the working directory and load everything. And let's just test it and see what happens. So let's just go ahead and do this and see. So we are going to print database URL, and here it's gonna be os.env run. Let's just do this. Maybe we'll not need OS after this, but let's just see if this is going to work. And we need to run just this file. So I'm gonna say python-m, and I'm gonna look into my source db config. This is what we have printed above here. SQLAlchemy library is divided into 2 modules, the core and the ORM. The core is made up of database integration logic for all the supported database dialects, and it contains classes to describe database tables and also sophisticated systems to generate SQL statements from Python constructs. On the other hand, ORM is a layer of abstraction between database and Python, and it allows many database operations to be automatically derived from actions performed on Python objects. SQLAlchemy uses engine object to manage connection to the database. For that reason, we need to import create engine from SQLAlchemy. So let's do that here. So from SQLAlchemy, we're gonna import create engine. Okay, and just down after we have loaded our environment variable, we are going to create a variable called engine. This variable will take in the object that comes from the create engine. So we say create engine, and we pass in the database. Okay, so we are going to consume the database from the .env file. So we're gonna use os.getEnv, and in there we're going to pass in database URL. The next one is going to be echo. Echo actually enables us to lock every SQL statement issued to the database. So this is also going to reflect the debug. So here is a mistake. I'm going to say debug. Okay. So once we are in a development environment, we're going to set it to true, but in the production environment, it's going to be false. So here we will say os.getEnv, and we pass in the debug. Next is the session. Session represents a database workspace for all your operations. For example, queries, inserts, updates, and deletes. We have so many ways by which we can achieve this, but here we're going to use the session marker of SQLAlchemy.orm. And what it does is that it is a factory that creates a new session object whenever it is called. So whenever we want to perform an operation on the database, we're going to call this session marker that is going to create a new session object. So why do we want to do this? We consider a session as a unit of work, and we know that committing and rolling back should affect only a specific session. So that's exactly what we want to do here. Okay, so for that we're going to import from SQLAlchemy.orm, import session marker, and just below the engine we are going to say session local. We call it session local, and we pass in, we bind the engine and auto flush to false. So we have to also the auto commit to false. So we need to commit manually. All right, let's define our database table. In SQLAlchemy, database tables are defined as Python classes, and these classes must inherit a base class, which is called declarative base class or models. So we are going to create our base class in the config file. So here at the level of the import, we will import the declarative base, and just down here we're going to create, let's call it model, and it's going to inherit the declarative base. For now, let's just introduce a pass, but we'll come back to it once we want to add some configuration. All right, so now let's define our RemindMe table or our RemindMe model. We're going to go to the DB, and from the DB in the model, we're going to create a Python file called RemindMe.py. So here we are going to first import the base model. So from source.db.config import model, and we are going to create call our model here RemindMe, and it's going to inherit the base model. So in SQLAlchemy, to give a name for your table, you can use the __ table name __. Here we're going to name our table RemindMe. It is important to understand that in version 2.0, SQLAlchemy introduced an integration with Python type hints. So the recommended syntax for column definition has changed from older releases. Okay, so here I'm going to import from SQLAlchemy.orm. I'm going to import mapped column, and I'm going to import mapped. Okay, so the mapped here will contain the Python type int, and the map column replaces column of the older version, and it is used to add extra configuration to that particular field. So here we have the different fields. The first one is the ID, and the ID will map to an integer. So because I want to add in some extra configuration, I'm going to use the map column and say primary key equals to true. The next column will be the label, and the label will be mapped to a string. Because I want to add in some extra information like limiting the size of the string, I'm going to use the map column. But here I'm going to import from SQLAlchemy import string so that I can use it to limit the size of my string. So here string, and as limited to 100. Also, I want to set an index for this particular field because a lot of queries will be done at this level. So I want to optimize the query at this level. The next one is going to be this, and we should already know that SQLite does not support arrays, also does not support dictionaries, and so on. So we need to convert everything to a string. So the days that comes from our Python backend is a list of string. So we need to let's say use JSON, the JSON library, and dump it to a string. Same thing with the alert type. The alert type comes as a dictionary. We are going to use the JSON dump to dump it to a string as well. So everything will be dumped to a string and before it is inserted into our database. So that's the limitation that SQLite comes with. All right, so here for the days we have, it will be mapped to a string, and we are also going to limit it to, here we're going to limit it to 100, I think. Okay, so I'm just going to limit it to 100. The next one is the alert sound. So it's going to be mapped to a string as well. And yeah, I'm going to limit it to 50. The next one will be the alert time. The alert time will be mapped to time. So yeah, I'm just going to import time just above here. So from datetime import time. So will be mapped to time. So the next one is going to be active. This is going to be boolean, bool. The next one will be repeat, and it's going to be mapped to bool as well. Next we have the created at, and the created at will be mapped to a string. But here we're going to add some extra configuration. And the first one is that we're going to use timestamp. So at the level of this line 4, we're going to import timestamp, and it's going to be timestamp. Also, we need to make sure this is autofill, meaning that when we create an entry of this table, this will be filled automatically with the current time. So in SQLAlchemy, we can do that using the server default. And here we're going to use the current timestamp from func. So we're going to import it here, func. And here we're going to say func.current timestamp. So we're going to do the same thing with the modified at. So let's copy this, and down here we're going to modify at. And one thing that we need to also add here is the fact that when something is changed in this table, we need to update the modify at. Okay, update the modify at to the current time. Okay, to the current timestamp. So for that, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna use the on update and from current timestamp. All right, so the last thing we're going to do is just to introduce a dunder method to better represent our model. Okay, so we're gonna do this, and we're gonna just return something like this, remind me, something that gives a human readable model. Okay, so we're gonna say this is ID and comma, here we're gonna have this is serve.label. SQLAlchemy maintains the definition of all the tables that make up a database in an object of class called the metadata. This can be initialized in the declarative base class, which we define in the config. So we can see it here. Alright, so the default metadata of this declarative base class defines naming convention for indexes, but does not do the same for constraint. So SQLAlchemy initializes all the constraints without an explicit name, and this can cause a lot of issue whenever we want to update or delete a constraint, since SQLAlchemy won't know how to address the constraint by its name. To fix this, we can define default naming convention. For that, we are going to need the metadata from SQLAlchemy, and down here in our base model we can say metadata equals to metadata, and in here we're going to paste what I have already. So basically this is a naming convention. For the first one is for index, this is unique key, this is constraint, this is foreign key, and this is primary key. So here we give in explicit names for all our keys, all our primary keys, foreign keys, constraint, indexes, indices, unique key, and so on. Alright, so on our terminal we're going to initialize Alembic. To do that, we'll use the command Alembic init, and we're going to specify the folder we want our configuration and migration to be stored. So we're going to call it Alembic still, because we want to make sure we can easily recognize where our Alembic configuration are found. So we call it Alembic, and once we run that, it's going to create the folder Alembic and also a file Alembic init. So we are going to do some modifications in this file and folders, and let's start with the init. So in the Alembic init, we are going to look for SQLAlchemy.uml. so let's look for that, SQLAlchemy.uml. so here we're going to specify our database. Okay, so here we can see driver dot and so on and so forth. So the way that we did it in our .env, we're going to do the same thing. So I don't really know how to get the information from .env. Maybe someone can give me a hint from in the comment section. So how do I consume my .env into my .init so that I don't need to do this twice? Okay, so here I'm going to specify the database I'm going to use, okay, in the SQLAlchemy.uml. so save that and move to the Alembic folder in the env.py. I'm going to look for the target metadata. This is it here, and I'm going to specify the target metadata. First, I'm going to import it somewhere here, so let's do that real quick here. So from source.db.config import model, and down here I'm going to say model.metadata. Save that, and also let's not forget to import our model. Okay, so I'm just gonna do it here. So from source.db.models.remindMe import RemindMe like this. So I think this is important because Alembic needs to know all the models that are created in the application. Okay, so I don't really know if this is necessary, but let's go ahead and do this because I think this model that is imported here and where we specify the metadata, it should be okay. It should be enough. So I don't know why I really need this. I did it without it and it did not work, so that's why I had to add it here. So maybe someone in the comment section can tell me why we actually need to import this as well, because importing something without using it is yeah, for me it's not really always a good idea. Alright, so next we're going to create a migration script and apply it. And since we'll be doing the migration script and application often, I will just put the command in the make file to save time. So I'm going to use the same naming convention as in Django, make migration. So here it's going to be Alembic revision, and use the auto generate. Here I'm going to say -m for this placeholder that is going to contain the message. So here it's going to be in something like this. Okay, and for the migrate, it will be Alembic upgrade head. Alright, so with that set up in our make file, let's go ahead and create the migration script. So I'm gonna say make migration, and m is gonna be equals to, here it's gonna be create remind me table. All right, let's go ahead and run this, finger crossed. Okay, so I think I have some issue at the level of the echo. So let's go ahead and check that. And this was not safe after all. All right, so I'm gonna save this. And also I think here at the level of the echo there might be a problem here, because everything that comes from the .env comes as a string, but the echo takes in a boolean. So here I'm gonna just say false equals to true. Okay, so that is going to take in, let me put like this. Okay, so it's gonna take in the string and it's gonna compare to this. Okay, all right, so once I have that and I save it, let's go ahead and run this again. Let's make sure the migration folder has not been created. Okay, let's go ahead and run it again. So make this. Okay, so we have this have been created. Perfect. All right, so once that has been created, we can go ahead and apply it. So make migrate. Okay, so now let's check our table. To check our table, I have this, we can go to setting. Oh, not setting. Let's go to command palette and open database. So this is an extension that I have in my VS Code. So I can go ahead and open, let's see where I have. So yeah, okay, so I'm gonna open this just to be sure, and this is my database that have been created. So we can see we have all these fields. So ID, label, days, alert sound, alert time, active, repeat, created at, and modified at. In our repositories folder, we will create a new file called schemas.py, and in here we're going to import the base model from Pydantic. Base model, and this base model will be inherited by our own base RemindMe. Okay, so we're going to have a base RemindMe as well, and this will be inherited by all our child classes that will act at a specific level. For example, we have the create RemindMe. Okay, and this will inherit the RemindMe base. We also have the read RemindMe that will also inherit the RemindMe base. Okay, let's go back to our RemindMe base. Here we are going to have data validation, okay, on fields that are common for these specific classes. For example, we are going to have label, which is going to be a string. This would be a string. Repeat would be boolean. Alert time will be time, which I'm going to import just here from datetime, import time. And alert sound would be a string, and the active would be bool. Now here we want to make this specific. Before saving the information to database, it would pass through this model, okay, for validation. So we know that the alert type should be a string. Okay, all right, so this is just to make sure that before it is saved in the database, it needs to be a string, and the read RemindMe is going to transform anything that needs to be transformed. For example, the alert type will come as a string from the database, but we don't want to use the string version. in our Python backend. Okay, so this particular Pydantic model is going to transform it to either a dictionary. Okay, so we're going to see how that works. All right, so for this read remind me Pydantic validation, we will have the ID, because once we receive information from the database, it's going to have the ID, but when creating it, we won't have the ID because the ID is created by the database. Okay, so here we're going to have the ID, and we're going to have the days. The days comes from the database as a JSON, but we don't want to work with JSON in our backend, so we're going to convert it. For example, the days, we're going to convert it to a list of string. So for that, we can use the JSON from Pydantic, and what it does is that it takes in a JSON and converts it to the respective data type. So here we're going to say JSON, and in there we're going to say we want to convert that JSON to a list of string. So the next one is going to be alert type, and we want to take in the JSON and convert it to a dictionary of string and boolean. All right, so the next one is created at. It's going to be date time, so I'm going to import it real quick. Date time, and here the next one is modified at. It's going to be date time, and because we're going to use this to validate, okay, a model of the SQLAlchemy, we need to use this configuration model config equals to config dict. Okay, that is going to be imported also here. Okay, so we can do it either from here or either from the model validator that we're going to use later on, but I like to do it here so that I just have the configuration. I don't need to repeat it in all the method that I'm going to use. Okay, so here I'm going to say config dict, and from attribute equals to true. All right, so from the interface, once we fill in the required field and this is enabled, we can submit from here. Okay, so once we submit, we want to make sure we attach a function that will retrieve all the information from this interface. All right, so let's go to our views. So from the views, we'll go to the @remind the item, and from here we can see the @reminder.py file that contains all the function or the non-UI logic for our @reminder item. Just above here, I'm going to create a method called submit. Okay, that will take care of submitting the reminder information into the database. So what this is going to do is that it's going to just extract data from all the fields. Then it's going to call a service, and the service will take it from there. Okay, so what we want to do is that we want to get in the hours. All right, so the hours is going to be a string. We want to get in the minutes. The minutes is going to be a string. We want to get in the seconds. The seconds will be a string. Okay, so here the hours is represented by the time hours here. So we're going to say time hours serve.time hours, and we're going to extract the text from that. So same thing with the minutes, and same thing with second. So this is for the time. Okay, so let's just do like this to remember. And for the days, we're gonna say days, and this is gonna be a list of string, and this comes from the days pop-up. Okay, so the days pop-up has a choosing day class attributes that we can use to extract the value from there. And we have repeat. Repeat comes from, let's say repeat is gonna be boolean. It comes from the days pop-up as well. It has the repeat class attribute as well. For the selected sound label, so let's call it selected sound, it's gonna be a string. Okay, So let's see how we can extract this, because right now we don't have the possibility to extract this. If we look at the selected sound, okay, just here, this doesn't keep in information for that particular the full path of the sound. So probably we're going to add something here. Let's call it sound full. Sorry. Let's come here at the level of the selected sound label. Let's call it sound full path. This will be, let's say, a string, and it's going to be empty for now. And we are going to set it at this level. Let's go to this select file function. Okay, so we can see here what we do is that we get the full path here and we prepare it with this function. So maybe before preparing it, we are going to set it to the selected sound, let's say full sound and so on, equals to, we're gonna say selected audio. So this will keep the full path before passing it to be prepared. Okay, so now at the level of our submit function, we can just go ahead and call it like this. All right, so the next one will be the alert type. Okay, so the alert type has two options. We have the sound and the pop-up. So we're gonna say alert type sound equals to, we take in the sound alarm check active dot active, and for the alert type pop-up, we have the serve pop-up this active. The next one is gonna be the label. So we say label is gonna be a string, and serve label input. And let's just make sure this is a bool as well as this a bool. Okay, so I think we have everything we need. Let's just go ahead and print this to see how it looks like. So we're gonna say the hours, the minutes, the second, the this, the repeat, the selected sound, the alert type pop-up, alert type sound, and the label. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this. So before running this, we're going to call this from our Kivy file. So here there might be an issue because we see here we have submit here as well. So I guess this submit is the ID of the submit button. So let's see how we can change that. Let's go to our AddReminder.Kivy. So we can see here we have this. So we're gonna look at that submit button again. Let's look at that submit button again. So we can see the ID here is this. So I'm just gonna say change it to submit.btn to represent submit button, and just above here I'm gonna change this to be like this. Okay, so that should not conflict with the function that I have there. Same thing here, I'm gonna change it here, and we know that the submit button, once we fill in the field, a function is called to activate the submit button. So probably the ID is used there as well. So we can see here in the try enable submit. So here I'm gonna also change it so that we don't have any errors. Okay, so once that is changed, I can go ahead and call this function from the Python file, from the Kivy file. So let's look at that particular, and here I'm gonna say on release, call it root.submit. All right, so let's go ahead and try it and see. All right, okay, so coming back here, I'm gonna say 1:30 p.m. and I'm select this, and this, and here I'm gonna say I want to select a file like this one, and here short test, and once I submit, I have this. So here we can see this is the hour, minutes. The second is not there. We have the days, the repeat, and we have path to the sound. We have I think pop-up is false, sound is true, and here we have this. All right, so this input instead displays the text input winget. So I think there's a mistake at the level of extracting the label. So let's go back and we can see just here I have to use the .text to extract the value there. Alright, so before submitting this information to the database, we need a lot of modification. So for example, we need to transform this to a string, and we need to make sure that the alert type, that is the pop-up false and sound true, is created accordingly, meaning that we're going to have a dictionary, okay, and other things that we can do as well. So we can do it directly from this submit function, but I would like to use a service for this. Okay, so I will go to my file. I have the service folder, and in there I'm going to create a file called the RemindMe service. Okay, so the RemindMe service here will help us to format the RemindMe details or the RemindMe data before we save it to the database. All right, so for example, looking at our database here, we can see here that we have the alert time, okay, will be made up of the time. So we need to format the time here as well. So let's go ahead and just do it here. And we're going to have a function called insert, and let's call it insert. Okay, so the insert here is going to take in the various fields and it's going to transform the one it needs to transform, and it's going to call the schema and finally call the repository to save it to the database. So here it's going to take in the hours, which is going to be string, takes in the minutes, it's going to be a string, takes in the seconds, a string, takes in the day, which is a list of string, takes in the repeat, which is going to be a boolean, and the alert type, let's say type pop-up, which is going to be a bool, alert type sound, a bool as well, the selected sound, which is going to be a string, and lastly the label, which is going to be a string. Okay, so for the modification, the first thing I'm going to modify is the alert time. Okay, so this alert time here, it's going to be made up like this. We're going to have the hours, the minutes, and the second. So for that, I'll need to import time. So from datetime, import time, and I'm going to use the from ISO format to transform my time or to format my time. So here I'm going to say alert time, which is going to be of type time, equals to time.from ISO format, and here it's going to take in the hours, minute, and second. Okay, so just like this. So we can do something like this. So this is going to be hours, and this is going to be minutes, and this is going to be seconds. All right, so here we have to be very careful because this our hours, minute, and second can come in like this. So we can have like this that represent 1 p.m. or we can have something like this that represent 4 a.m. sorry, or we can have nothing at all because the minute and second are optional. So if we are using this method and we want to pass in single values for hours, minute, and second, or nothing at all, then this is going to fail. Okay, so we want to make sure that we have a helper function that can help us to make sure that, for example, this value will be transformed to this, and nothing at all will be transformed to this. Okay, so at any point in time, we always have double values like this. Okay, so for that we are going to go to our where do we have our helper function? We have the util, and in this util we have the helper here. So here we're going to create a function. Let's call it format alert time, and it's going to take in the value as a string. Okay, and first thing first, we're going to check if the length of that value equals to 0, meaning that if it comes like this, empty, okay, then we want to return 0, 0. If the length of the value is 1, it means that it came like this. Then we want to return something like this. Okay, so want to return something like 0, 4. Else just return the value. Okay, so once we have that, we can come back to our service and we import it just above here from source.util.helper. Import this, then we can use it here, okay, to get the right hours, and also here to get the right minutes, and finally here to get the right seconds. All right, so for the alerts for the days come in as a list of string, but we want to transform it to a JSON. Okay, so we're gonna say alert days, which need to be a string. Then we're gonna use JSON DOM. Okay, so here we import JSON, and here we're gonna dump it, JSON dump. Okay, we dump it to a JSON. Same thing with the alert type, it needs to be a string. So here we're gonna also use the JSON dump, and here we're gonna construct the alert type. So we said the alert type comes in this format. We have this the sound, which needs to be the value of that sound is alert type sound. So say alert type sound. We have the pop-up, which will be the alert type pop-up. Okay, so all of this will be dumped to a JSON string. So the next one is the alert sound, okay, which needs to be a string. Now we are going to, later on in this series, we're going to introduce settings in Kivy. Okay, so in that setting we'll be able to set default sounds that we want to use. But for now, since we don't have that already set up, we're going to just make sure that we put in a default sound. All right, we'll put in default, we hard code a default sound. Then later on we're going to use the normal setting that come with Kivy. So this is gonna be the selected sound. If selected sound, all right, so if selected sound is set, then we want to get the selected sound. Else we're gonna go ahead and get a sound. All right, the sound will be placed in assets, so asset sound folder. All right, so I'm going to download a sound and put it here, then I'm going to use it. So just give me a second. All right, so this is the sound that I will use. All right, so let me just run it. All right, so that's the sound I'm going to use. So it is found in my assets sounds folder. So I'll go back here and see how I can consume that. So I'm going to say from source.util.constant, I'm going to import base path so that I can have access to the base path. So here I'm going to say string base path. From the base path, I'm going to go to assets, and from asset I will go to sounds, and from sound I will go to sound.waves. All right, okay, now I think I have everything that I need. Okay, I've transformed everything that I need. So next, here I'm going to call the schema to validate with Pydantic. Okay, so once I validate with Pydantic, I'm going to call the repository to save the reminder data. All right, so let me go ahead and import the create reminder model from Pydantic, because we need to confirm that everything is okay before we insert it or we create it in the database. So here I'm gonna say from source.db repository import schema. So here I will say schemas dot create reminder me, and here I'm gonna pass everything there. Okay, so I'll pass in everything. So the first one, let's just say alert time equals to alert time. Next one is gonna be this equals to alert this. Let's say repeat, it's gonna be repeat. Let's say alert type, it's gonna be alert type. Let's say alert sound would be alert sound, and the next one is gonna be label, would be label. Okay, so I think everything is set. So this will validate the information to make sure that everything I have here is ready to be submitted. All right, so let's go ahead, and here we have a typo here, and gonna be sounds, and yeah, I'm just gonna assign this to a variable called validated data. All right, okay, now once I have the validated data, I need to call the repository to save to the database. So I'm gonna have it here like this. So let's go ahead and create this in the repository folder. So let's go in the repository and I'm gonna look for the repository folder. It is found in the DB, and right here we're gonna create a new file called RemindMeApp.py. This will contain code that will save our reminder information in the database. So here I'm gonna import the season local that will help us to create a session. So we have that in the config. So we're gonna import session local. Also, we need to have the model, okay, the SQLAlchemy model that we created. So we're gonna say from source.db.model.remindMe import remindMe. We also need the schema, okay, because we are going to use it for type hints. So we're gonna say from source.db.repository import schemas. Okay, with that we can go ahead and create our function. So let's call it create reminder or remind me, and it's gonna take in the reminder data, okay, and that reminder data will be a schema. Okay, so we remember here this will return a scheme, an object. This will return an object, a Pydantic object. So this create remind me is going to take a single object that contains all the data that was validated. So here we need to say for the type hint we're going to use schemas.create remind me. Okay, and of course is going to return the schema dot read remind me, okay, or of course none in case the insertion, okay, into the database was not successful. So once we have that, we're going to use the try except, where we are going to create a session. Once we have a session, we are going to create the object, okay, using the SQLAlchemy model. So we're going to say reminder equals to, and here we will say remind me, and pass in all the information. Because we don't have a dunder init in this SQLAlchemy model, we need to call in, we need to pass in information using keyword argument. Okay, so here we're gonna say, let's say label equals to remind me dot label. So I'm gonna copy just this, just to be sure that I don't need to repeat myself too much. And this will be this dot this, okay, and alert sound will be this dot alert sound. Alert type will be this dot alert type, and alert time will be this dot alert time. Active will be this dot active, and repeat will be this dot repeat. Okay, so once we have this, then we want to go ahead and add it to our database. So for this, we need to do two things. So we need to use a db.add and pass in the reminder, and we need to also commit, because remember the auto commit was false, so we need to commit here. And after committing, we can do a db refresh the reminder. Okay, so this db refresh, what it does is that it goes ahead and fill in this reminder object that was created here with some values that come from the database, like created add, modify add, and the ID as well. Okay, so that's what the refresh does. After that, we need to close in this session. All right, so after we have closed this session, we can go ahead and return the reminder. Okay, but this reminder does not match this data type. Okay, we still need to validate with Pydantic. Okay, so that's why we're going to use the read remind me that we created in our schema. So here we're going to say schema dot read remind me, and we're going to use the model validate in order to go ahead and validate the information that comes from our SQLAlchemy. Okay, so here we're going to pass in the object, and we're just going to make it strict so that it should be strict on the data type. So remember, information that comes from the SQLAlchemy is fetched from an SQLite database. So most of them are string. Okay, so that's why you can see at the level of the read remind me model, we see here that this comes in as a string and it is transformed to a list of string, and this one comes in as a string and this is transformed as a dictionary, and so on and so forth. And this is also transformed as a date time, and this one as a date time as well. Okay, once we have this, we can go back to, let's just put our except here, and we're going to cache in exception. If an exception occurs, then we'll return none. Okay, just to satisfy this condition here. So once we have that, we can go back to our service and import it just here. So let's say from source.db. Let's say import from db.repository, and let's just say import readme as repo readme. Okay, so that we know it is a repository. So once we have that, we can go ahead and say return. We pass in, we do this, and we call the create remind me, and we'll pass in the validated data. All right. So with that out of the way, we can come back to our views, and here we're going to call it just here. We're going to replace this print here. So let's go ahead and import it first. So from source.service.remindMe. Okay, the name is not good. Okay, let's see, let's rename that. So remind me. So let's go ahead and fix that real quick. Okay, so we're gonna import, let's just say import remind me as service remind me. Okay, and we're gonna use that, and just down here after we've collected everything. All right, so we'll say remind me equals to, and it's gonna have the data type, of course, schemas. Oh, don't tell me I didn't import schemas here. Okay, so from source.db.repository import schemas. So it's gonna have the data type schemas dot rate remind me or none. Okay, then we're gonna call it here. So remind me service or service remind me dot insert, and here we're gonna pass in all the information. Okay, so based on this, we can see the first, we can go ahead and just copy this. Okay, so that we don't have any typos there, and yeah, I'm just gonna paste them here and try to fix them by removing all of this. Okay, and removing this as well. All right, so let's go ahead and try this and see what we have. So we will run it, and yeah, we're gonna say 1:30. Specify Tuesday and Friday, and here we said we take in this file, and here we said testing 1. Okay, and let's go ahead and run it. All right, so we have some issues here, and it's like our create remind me schema has some issues validating this information. Okay, so let's take a look at it, and we can see here we have for the create remind me schema, we have label, days, repeat, other time, other sound, active. Okay, so it seems like the active have not been used. So we can see here we're inserting, we don't have the active because the active is not in the active does not come from this particular interface. All right, so we want to create an event, it is active by default. So either we pass it here as a default value, or we set it as a default value in the database. So if we go to our database, we can see if we have set that to be default. So we see it is not a default value. So here I'm going to add it, map, and I will just say this will be boolean. So I'm going to import boolean from here, and just down here I will say this is boolean. Oh, sorry, this is boolean, and we have default equals to true. Of course, this also we use the index because we can also filter based on this active. So once we have done a modification on our model, we have to migrate. So we first do the make migration, and we give him the information. What did we do? We set active to the default set active to true by default, and index. The message may not be the best. So once we do that, we go ahead and migrate. Okay, so with that, let's try it again. Oops, let's try it again with make. So we will enter the value, let's say 2 o'clock or 2:40. Select some days and select some files here, and we'll say take a nap. Okay, see, still the same thing. It says one validation error on create remind me, and apparently we have the alert time here is a date time. Okay, it's a date time. I think that should be fine, but it seems like the date time here is not enough, probably, I don't know. So I'm just gonna import time here. Okay, I'll import time here, and here I'm just gonna use map column and say time. Okay, something like that. Let me go again and make migration and migrate. So the message here is gonna be add time to alert time, and I'm just gonna migrate it. Okay, let's go again and run it and see. So we're gonna say 1350. Let's just do this and this and repeat. And yeah, we're gonna select just this file, take a nap. Okay, we still have some issues. Okay, so let's try to debug this. Okay, it is not working, and somehow I have here at the level of this repository, we can see already something that indicates an issue here, because we are not actually passing active through the create remind me. Okay, we already removed that, so yeah, I'm going to remove it as well because it is already default in the database. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to print the exception that occurs here, because there should be an exception that is preventing it from submitting. So let me go again and run it, and from there I'm gonna just select to the 50 and just do like this, just for me to have the error. Okay, and yeah, I'm gonna say shut nap. Okay, so we can see it says that the alert type is an invalid keyword argument for remind me. Whoa, it means that somehow we did not include the alert type in our model. So we can see I don't see anything like alert type. Okay, so let's go ahead and add that. So yeah, I'm going to say alert type, and it is a string, and the string is going to have a size limit of, let's say 50. Okay, so let's just to remind us that the days here is something like this. So it's gonna be a string, but having this format here, we'll have Monday and Tuesday like this, and here it's gonna be also a string, but having the format like this, sound true and pop up for something like this. Okay, it's gonna be a JSON. So all of this is gonna be a JSON. Okay. All right. So let's now go ahead and migrate it. So make migrations, and I'm gonna say add alert type, and I'm gonna migrate. Okay, so I'll start my application. Let's go ahead and say this, this, and we select this and we say short nap. Okay, so I think everything should be fine now. So we'll go ahead and check our database, and we can see everything has been inserted in the database. Perfect. All right, so at the level of the repository, I can just go ahead and remove this. I don't actually need it for now. Okay, so everything seems to work perfectly fine. So I'm gonna go back to my views. Okay, so at the level of the submits, so once we have this, we can go ahead and check if RemindMe is the value that comes out of it is not known. If it's not known, it means that the insertion was successful. Then we can go ahead and send a success notification. Else, we go ahead and send a fail notification. Okay. All right. So yeah, I'm just gonna prepare the message. It's gonna be let me say fail. But if the remind me comes back with some values, then I'm gonna set it to successful. And also I'm gonna send the information, send the notification here, and also reset my my fields. Okay, reset all my fields. So I have already a reset method here that reset all the fields in that user interface. So I'm gonna call it here serve.reset to reset everything. All right, so let me just remove these errors because it has to do, everything has to do with this message. So this message will carry false by default, but if anything comes out of this submit, or anything comes out of this insert, then it's gonna set it to successful. Then from there, I will go ahead and send the notification just down here. Now, to send the notification, we are going to look for the area where the notification needs to be sent. So I think I have, I don't know if I've set it already. Okay, so let me look for it. Okay, so it should be somewhere under the after the submit button. We have this. So this one, looking at this user interface, this is where the notification will be will pop up. Okay, this is where the notification will be shown, and it's gonna last for a few seconds, then disappear. So we can see this should be the UI/5, and this last one should be the UI6. Okay, so we're gonna look at the UI5, and I think somewhere here this should be the area for the notification. So I will put an ID here and call it submit notification message, and bring it right up here. And from there, I'm gonna move to the Python folder and also add it here. Okay. All right. So just at the level of the submit here, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create a function here that is going to take care of pushing the image or pushing the message to that label, and also a function to remove it. So here I'm going to call it push message, and it's going to take in the message as a string. And what it's going to do is that it's going to call the serve this and set the message there. All right, so here after setting the message, I need to remove it after a few seconds. So I'm going to use the clock of Kivy clock. I don't know how they call it, but we can import it from Kivy. So from Kivy clock, import clock. So this will help us to do the work. All right, so just down here below the push message method, I will have another method called pull message, and it will take in the event because it's going to be called in the clock. So the clock automatically or the clock by default pass in the event here. So yeah, what we're going to do is that it's just going to set this to empty. Okay, so here at the level of the push message, I'm going to call in the schedule once. So I want it to happen once. Okay, from clock I have schedule once, and I call in the method that I'm going to use to remove, and I want it to be removed, or I want this method to be called after 3 seconds. So it's going to be called once after 3 seconds. All right, so with that I can come just down here and call my serve.push message, and I pass in my message. Okay, now for my message, I want it to have a red color for fail and something like a green color, okay, for successful. So what I'm gonna do is that in my Kivy, let me look for that notification again. There's already a default color here, so we can see it defined with canvas.before. There's also a default background color and a default color here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is that I will go ahead and set the color for reds at this level using this format color, and here I'm going to pass in a value that will represent reds. Okay, all right, so we have that, and we close it with color. Now for this to work at the level of the Kivy language, I need to make sure that I set markup to true. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and try it and see if it's going to work. So let's go ahead and add let's say this and this, and let's just say this, let's say sleep. So you can see here, and it disappears. Perfect. And that's it. We just completed the add reminder item that permits us to save reminder event in our application. In the next video of this series, we will handle another tab item called the list reminder item that permits us to list all saved reminder events with search capabilities and other filter options. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment to support the content. Code with Eno. See you in the next video.